Hey, what is going on, guys? It's DK. Back at you with another video here, rating the 9-game NBA main slate on Saturday. Before I get into the video, if you guys are new to the channel, my name's DK. I make daily videos breaking out NBA, NFL, PGA, and esports data fantasy sports slates. Before we get into the video, guys, I want to thank you again for the continued support. It is greatly appreciated. Closing in on 7,000 subscribers on YouTube. If you guys do enjoy this content, would really appreciate it if you leave a like button on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you know when I upload videos, you know when I go live. Also, if you guys cannot watch these videos, I do upload an Apple Podcasts. I'll have a link in the description below. If you guys are interested in signing up for premium content, I offer that now on patreon.com. Also, link down below. You can check out the different plans that I offer. And finally, I want to thank PrizePicks for sponsoring the show. If you guys are not familiar with PrizePicks, it's a site where you can bet on player props. So you're betting over, under, on player projections. If you guys want to sign up, you can just go to DKDFS. That's DKDFS, all one word. Link in the description below. 100% match up to $100. But with that all out of the way, let's jump in the video. So before we talk about players and the prices for this 9-game slate, let's review my lineup from Christmas. So Christmas, there were some, or at least in my lineups, some booms and some busts. So going over it, I had Kyrie, Tyler Hero, JJ Redick, Bobby Portis, Paul Millsap, Jeff Teague, Jaylen Brown, and Luka Doncic. So, two hits, I guess, or three hits were Kyrie at the top, only 16% owned, 61 fantasy points. That was literally he is saving my lineup right now currently. So that was huge. Bobby Portis for value, kind of went to him because I was voiding that Golden State Milwaukee game. And, I figured if the game does blow up, Bobby Portis probably gets a little extra run. I think he played 26 minutes and he crushed in that time. And then Jaylen Brown, again, I was pretty high in the Boston guy. So Brown was solid. The bust, well, Tyler Hero was not great. Only 19.5 fantasy points. It was, in the live stream, in the Patreon live stream, I was hammering it down. I was like, this is a 50-50 shot. 50-50 decision for me, whether it be Hero or Dragic. It was literally a coin flip. The only reason I went Tyler Hero here was because he was shooting guard eligible. And I wanted to play Kyrie. I wanted to play Teague. I wanted to play Doncic. So, there wasn't room for me to get Dragic in my lineup. So that's why I went Hero. Unfortunately, he only had 20. Dragic went for 40. Again, sometimes that's how it works, but Hero just had a bad shooting night. JJ Redick as well. I think he shot 1 of 8, had foul trouble too. So, it was just some parts of this lineup were just so tilting. And then Jeff Teague, 0 of 5, 5 fancy points in 25 minutes. Jeff Teague's the Grinch, man. NBA for me at least has been a little up and down last few days. I had Pascal bust my lineup the first day. Had the Bulls sink my lineup last night, and then it's Jeff Teague tonight. Hopefully he can avoid these chalk busts in the future. But yeah, that's the lineup right now. Again, I'm cashing in the Millie Maker lineup with Paul Millsap to go. We'll see how I finish. Not sure if I'll cash, but again, Kyrie was a big reason why I'm currently in the cash at the moment. But a really weird slate. It's going to be a pretty low-scoring slate. There's a ton of blowouts, not a lot of big scores. So, yeah, a pretty just ugly Christmas slate for NBA. But that's really it for the look back. So, what we can do now is let's take a look at the Vegas odds for what we have out for these games. Let's go over to NBA. Let's click on NBA, not all basketball. So, Hawks, Grizzlies. If this game was in the main slate, I would have a lot of interest in it, but it's a showdown slate, so it's currently not, included on this main slate. We have Cavs, we have Pistons. This is a 217 over under. The Pistons are 1-point favorites. Thunder and Hornets, a 218.5 over under. The Hornets are 3-point favorites. We have Magic, we have Wizards, a 228.5 over under. The Wizards are 2-point favorites. 76ers and Knicks is a 218.5 over under. The 76ers are 8-point favorites. Pacers, Bulls, a 223.5 over under. The Pacers are 4.5-point favorites. Raptors and Spurs is a 225.5 over under. The Raptors are 1-point favorites. Timberwolves, Jazz, 225.5 over under. The Jazz are 8-point favorites. And the late night hammer here, Suns, Kings, a 228 over under. The Suns are 3.5-point favorites. So I guess, the big news, what we're waiting on for the slate is the Houston guys, right? We have a lot of question marks on who's going to be available or not. So let's just go to them really quick, right? So we have John Wall out. We have Eric Gordon out. We have Boogie Cousins out. That we know. Harden looking like he'll be available. Christian Wood looking like he'll be available. Ben McLemore out. Clemens out. Martin out. So they are going to be pretty thin as long as everyone else plays. So, again, we have Harden, we have Wood, Tucker, House, Caboclo, Sterling Brown, Waba, Tate, and Thomas. What is that? Nine active players, right? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, looks like they only have 9 healthy players. So Houston's the team I think you're going to want some exposure to on this slate. Again, a good matchup too against Portland. But let's start it off with center. And at the top, we have Joel Embiid at 10.2K against the Knicks. I think firmly in play at the top just because matchup plus the fact that he'll play, about 35 minutes. And Embiid's the guy I have the most confidence in on this team. He's a guy that can go for 70 basically any single night. So Joel Embiid firmly in play here at the top. We'll go over some value too. There is a decent amount of value that's opening up on the slate already. And we have some of the Houston guys. We'll go over a guy like possibly Bismack Biyombo. I think Plumlee is a viable value. We'll get to the value. But Embiid at the top, I think, looks like a pretty decent play. Now, Towns at 10K. I'd rather just get into Embiid if I'm going to pay all the way up at center. So I'm not going to really look there. Drummond at 9-2, revenge game narrative. But what I'm concerned about is he only played, 27 minutes. And, it wasn't like he was in huge foul trouble. So that is a little bit worrisome. If he's not, guaranteed 35 minutes, then it makes him a lot riskier. Now, I think he can still get us there if we get the minutes, but minutes a little bit more in question. So Drummond, I think more of a GPP play just based off what we saw in that last game for minutes. Now, Vucevic at 9-1. Would have wished he was a little bit cheaper. I love the matchup for him against Washington. Embiid had a field day against Thomas Bryant a couple days ago. So I do like the matchup. 9.1, though, feels about right. I feel like he can get us there, but would have wished he was a little bit cheaper. Now, my boy Sabonis was huge the other night. Went for, close to 60 fancy points at low ownership. Unfortunately, again, the Bulls sunk my lineup that night. But I like him again here. I mean, you saw... Chicago's defense against Atlanta. They couldn't stop anyone. And Sabonis, the offense runs through him and Brogdon. I like a good amount here. Sure, the price went up, but I still think Sabonis is a really solid play at the top. So should play 35-plus minutes. Great matchup. Again, offense runs through him. I do like Sabonis a lot once again. Again, not a surprise there that I'm high on Sabonis. DeAndre 8-1. If you played him last slate, that was truly unfortunate. He got in severe foul trouble. This is a decent spot against Sacramento, but 8.1K, it feels about right. I feel like I'd rather just get a Sabonis. Randall at 7.5 against Philly. Again, he's one of the few Knicks I have confidence in minutes-wise. He played 35-plus minutes. Expect about the same again. Matchup, not necessarily the best, though, against Philly. Other options, Gobert at 7.4 against Karl-Anthony Towns. Towns is not a great defender, but I don't know if I'm really going to prioritize Gobert. Same thing with Blake Griffin. Nurkic got limited last game, so I'm probably not going to go there. Now, Larry Nance had a big game. A lot of those Cavs crushed. Now, we were a little uncertain on how many minutes the starters were going to get, but basically all the starters played 30-plus minutes. With Sexton, with Okoro, with Garland, with Nance. Everyone besides Drummond played over 30 minutes, which is such a surprise. You would figure Drummond would be the one guy who'd have the most confidence in minutes-wise. Now, I think Nance finished with over 50 fantasy points. He had 13, 8, 3, and 2. He's the type of guy that can put up that stat line. If they're going to continue to somewhat limit Drummond, then, yeah, Nance is viable. But obviously, we've got to keep an eye on Kevin Love as well. I don't think we have that news confirmed yet on Kevin Love's status. So, Nance is only viable on the slate if Kevin Love is out. If Kevin Love plays, I have no interest in Nance at that price. So, obviously, that's something to monitor. Other options, so Al Horford at 6.1K, I like a good amount. Against Charlotte, the matchup's good. We have not yet seen the Thunder because, again, that game got postponed against the Rockets. But the Thunder are not a very talented team. So, they have SGA, they have Horford, Baisley, a guy like George Hill. They don't have a ton of talent on this team. And Horford is going to play the 5 a lot here. Again, last year, he played most of the time at the 4. So, Horford gets a huge boost now. He's playing the 5. The matchup's good. Price is very fair. I really like Al Horford. I like that he's power forward and center eligible as well. And Christian Wood at 5'9". This is just a plug and play, in my opinion. No Boogie Cousins, no Eric Gordon, no John Wall. It's basically going to be him and James Harden running the show. 5.9K, possibly a 9-man rotation, maybe thinner. Love Christian Wood. I just think, don't get cute here. I think he's one of the best plays of the slate. A very good offensive player. Yeah, he is one of the top plays of the slate. I do not trust Mitchell Robinson staying out of foul trouble against Embiid. There's no way I'm taking a shot there. Other options at center, yeah, Wendell Carter Jr. That still tilting from the other night with those Bulls. PJ Washington was also a bust, somewhat popular last slate. Now, they are missing Cody Zeller. He's out. So Biyombo will most likely start, but they don't have a ton of options behind him. So PJ will probably play some small ball 5, but how many minutes do we get from him? He only played 21 minutes the last game. So, and the price to come up on him too, a little riskier. Now, Plumlee was a guy that, I was hammering down in the videos and live streams. I was like, I knew Mason Plumlee was going to play 30 minutes. I would lock him in at that price. And he got 32 minutes. So looks like the plan is to play Mason Plumlee around 30 minutes a game. If that's the case, still the price went up on him to 4.8, but I don't know if it came up enough. Like, he's a decent point per minute guy, right? So if we're going to get close to 30 minutes again from Plumlee, I think he does make for a really solid value play here. Now, sure, matchup against Drummond, there is a chance he could get in some foul trouble. Now, Enes Kanter's at 4.6K. They kind of limited Yusuf Nurkic. She only played, low 20s minutes. If they're going to continue to limit Nurkic, I think Kanter's a viable GPP play because he's a good point per minute guy. So that'll be something to keep an eye on if we get any news on, Nurkic, minutes, restrictions, stuff like that. Let's see again. Zeller out. So mentioned PJ Washington, but Bismack Biyombo at 3.6K. If he does pick up the start, I think that is too cheap. I would assume we probably get about mid-20s minutes from him. And again, at this price, he doesn't need a ton to pay off his salary. So Biyombo would definitely be someone I would look to for value if they do end up starting him. Now, Whiteside's a viable play off the bench. He only played 18 minutes the last game, but he's a really good point per minute guy. Probably not a cash play, but again, you can look to him for GPPs because he's, great point per minute guy. Other options here at center, that's probably it for me. Yeah, I don't think I get to anyone else here. So let's move on to power forward. Mentioned Sabonis. Let's see. DeRozan and Siakam seem priced about right. Now, Gordon Hayward and Rozier had massive games in their first game. Hayward, I think, pushed for 50 fantasy points. Same with Rozier. Hayward at 28, 7, 4, and 1. Charlotte, again, not a team that is not very talented. So, you kind of know where the offense is coming from this team. It's going to be Gordon Hayward. It's going to be the two guards in Rozier and Devontae Graham. I think all three are in play. Now, the prices went up on these guys. They're no longer priced in like the low 6K range. So I think these guys are definitely in play. But like I said in the previous video, it's kind of hard to nail down which one's going to have the really good game. But I think, getting exposure to maybe one of these guys is not a bad idea at all. I think at least one will have a really solid game. Matchup against Thunder too. Again, Thunder are a young team, but don't expect them to be great defensively. So, with Hayward, with Rozier, with Graham, all three firmly in play. Other options, Aaron Gordon, 6'9". Again, they kind of limited him. They're still taking it easy in his minutes. So at the moment, I'm not going to look there. Tobias Harris shot like 3 of 15. Just like, man, can we get any unluckier? Now, I didn't personally play him, but he was a guy I was pretty high on that first slate because small forward was weak. The matchup was great, and he just could not hit the broadside of a barn. Price went up a bit to 6.7. Matchup is still good, but I don't know if we have to do it on this slate. The price went way up in marketing. I'm probably not going to get there at 6.4. Let's see. Other options. Rudy Gay came out the bench, only played about 20 minutes. Makes him a lot riskier if he's going to continue to play out the bench. Now, Darius Bazley at 5.1, I think is definitely viable. Again, I'm pretty high on these Thunder guys, that being Bazley and Horford. Now, they did price up SGA a good amount, over 8K, so that seems about right. But with Horford, with Bazley, I think these guys are a little bit underpriced. That's kind of where the offense is going to come from. We'll talk about George Hill. I think is firmly in play for value as well. So, Bazley 5.1, I think goes a little bit overlooked, but I think he does have upside even at that price. Other options, again, the price went up on Patrick Williams. He played 33 minutes. A decent amount of that was in garbage time. So I think he's an okay value play, but not as good as he was at last night. Okoro, again, he played over 30 minutes. If these Cavs are going to continue to play big minutes as starters, that is, I think Okoro, I think Garland, Nance, if Love is out, are definitely in play. So, 4.4K for Okoro, I think is a nice price for value. Other options, I want to see what Houston does with their starting lineup, right? I know Wood's going to be it. I know Harden is going to be in it, but who else do they start? So Houston is a team we got to keep an eye on for starters. What are they going to do with the rotation? But they are pretty thin. I definitely think you want a decent amount of exposure to Houston tomorrow. And I think that about wraps it up for me for power forwards. So let's move on to small forward. Ben Simmons a little pricey for me. Talked about DeRozan and Hayward. Let's see, RJ at 6'6" and a little scoring dependent for my liking at that price. Honestly, there's not a ton at the top that I like. Malik Beasley seems priced about right. Again, Rudy Gay kind of got limited in his first game. Only played 20 minutes off the bench. Yeah, there's honestly not anything that stands out to me at the top. Like, I'm just scrolling down here. I think Cam Johnson's okay at 4'9". He played like 25 minutes off the bench. A viable cheap play. Danwell House is someone I'm definitely looking to. Normally, House is a guy I kind of avoid because it's scoring dependent. But, again, they have Harden. They have Wood. Who else is going to play big minutes? I think Danwell House should get good run. 4.7K, good matchup. I actually do like him for value here. Other options, like Josh Jackson, actually played decent minutes off the bench. He had 19, 6, and 2. Now, is he going to continue this level of production? Probably not. So, I think he's a decent value play, but not a must. Again, talked about Okoro too. Again, he played over 30 minutes. There's not a ton of guys in this range that are going to play those type of minutes, so I think he's firmly in play for that reason. Culver played decent minutes off the bench, but match against the Jazz is not necessarily the best. And yeah, that's kind of it. So you can tell small forward is a position I'm not super excited about. And again, then it's kind of just the rest of the Houston Valley guys, so possibly like Nwaba, Sterling Brown. These are guys that I want to see what Houston does to the starting lineup. But they looking like they might only have nine-man rotation, maybe less. So again, Houston's the team that I have a good amount of interest in for tomorrow's slate. So Harden at 10.9K. What do we know? Looks like he's going to be available. No John Wall. No Eric Gordon. No Boogie Cousins. Matchup against Portland's good. So Harden, I think, is the safest spend up by far. The guy that has, the most upside too. They're going to be so thin. Harden should have to play huge minutes. Love him at the top. I think he's obviously going to be very, very popular, but he's my favorite spend up by far on this slate. It's not even close. Booker at 9.8, just a contrarian play. I mean, why would I play Booker when I can get to Harden for an extra $1,000? It just doesn't make sense to me. Now, Beal at 9.3, potentially if they rest Westbrook. Westbrook and Bertans, they said they're going to rest one night of a back-to-back, and they play tomorrow and Sunday. So we'll see. Do they rest the front end or the back end? So that'll be something to keep an eye on. If they do end up resting Westbrook and Bertans, then Beal is firmly in play, even in a bad matchup, just because Washington will be very, very thin then. Let's see. Other options at shooting guard. And Sexton is point guard, shooting guard eligible. These Cavs all played huge minutes. He had 27, 5, and 2. Now, the price 7-2, though, it feels about right. I think he can still have a decent game, but would have wished he was a little bit cheaper. Again, Rozier, him, Graham, and Hayward are firmly in play. I think one of those guys probably have a decent game, but trying to nail down which one it is a little bit tougher. Again, Rozier had the big night, 42, 3, and 2 with 2 steals and a block. He's not going to shoot that well every night. But, again, where the offenses come from. It's Rozier, it's Graham, it's Gordon Hayward. Kobe White, man, let me down back-to-back games. Last game of the preseason, first game of the regular season, he shot, I think combined, I want to say 3 of 30 in the 2 games I've rostered him. No joke. It's been around that. Still, I think he's in play. I think the ownership will drop on him. He's been somewhat popular last couple of slates. What you know with Kobe White is that the game stays close. He'll play over 35 minutes. And the offense does run through him and LaVine. LaVine is still the better player at this point in his career, but White is a guy that is $2,000 cheaper. So I think White's in play, but more of a GPP play based on what we saw from him the last couple of games. Other options at shooting guard, let's see. Clarkson's always a viable play off the bench, but the price went up to 5.3. That feels about right. Let's see. Is there anyone else? Troy Brown, potentially, if they rest guys like Westbrook and Bertans, maybe value there. Again, that'll be something to keep an eye on. George Hill, last guy I'll mention here, 3.4K. That's just too cheap. Whether he starts or comes off the bench, I assume we probably get at least 20 minutes. I'll say somewhere between 20 to 30 minutes for George Hill. 3.4K is just too cheap. So I think he is one of the better value plays on the slate at that price. And that about wraps up. So let's move on to point guard. So mentioned Harden, mentioned Westbrook, and possibly he'll rest. We got to keep an eye on that. Ben Simmons is a little pricey for me. Lillard at 9.5. I do like the matchup. He had a terrible game last game against the Jazz. 9 points, 4 boards, 7 assists. That's it. I think you could run a game stack here. Obviously, again, I think Houston guys are going to be pretty popular. So if you want to run like Harden and Wood and run it back with Lillard, I don't think that's the worst idea, and then go value from there. But I think Lillard at the moment at that price, more of a contrarian play. Same thing with Fox. I'm a huge De'Aaron Fox fan. I do like the matchup, but 8-7. If he was like 7-5, I would have a lot more interest in him. Same thing with Donovan Mitchell. That feels about right. SGA, again, 8.3K. That also seems priced right. I think Horford, Bazley, a little underpriced. SGA, I think, is about right. He can still have upside at that price, but would have wished he was a little bit cheaper there. Let's see. Other options. Chris Paul, they limited him to below 30 minutes. Don't have a ton of interest. Now, Malcolm Brogdon's a guy I like. A safe play. Sure, the price jumped about $1,000, but again, like offense is running through Brogdon and Sabonis. Brogdon has such a high floor because of the assists. He had 21.7 boards, 8 assists, 2 steals. He's a guy that stuffs the stat sheet. Matchup's great, too. Chicago, not good defensively at all. So Brogdon and Sabonis are two guys I really like here on the Indiana Pacers side. Other options, again, we mentioned Rozier, mentioned Devontae Graham, mentioned Gordon Hayward. I think, maybe getting to one of these guys is a good idea. I think one has a really solid game for their price. All three should play over 30 minutes. And other than that, again, there's not a ton of high usage guys in this offense. So it's Graham, it's Rozier, it's Gordon Hayward. I think all three certainly viable on this slate. Rose, the price went up to 6.6, more of a contrarian play at the price. Now, DeJounte Murray is a guy I still like at 6.4. Matchup not necessarily the best, but there's still no Derek White, so the minutes will be there. He played 31 minutes the last game. I expect about the same. He was a guy that went for 40 plus at somewhat low ownership last slate. So ownership probably does jump. The price went up a little bit, but I still think he's firmly in play. A guy that can stuff the stat sheet. So yeah, DeJounte Murray definitely in play there in the mid range. Alf Payton, not a ton of interest to limit his minutes. Markelle Fultz played over 30 minutes. The matchup's good. I think he's more of a secondary play, but still possesses upside because of the matchup. Now, Darius Garland shot the ball really well. He had 22 points, 6 assists, 6 boards, and 1 steal in that last game. We're probably not going to get this level of production from Garland again. And he's, again, at times has a pretty low floor, like 34 minutes, 13 fantasy points, 36 minutes, 24 fantasy points, 30 minutes, 19 fantasy points. So I pumped the brakes a little bit on Garland. I would not expect anywhere near this stat line again, but what you can expect is probably over 30 minutes for basically all these Cavs starters. So, yeah, Garland is a fine play, but might be a little bit over-owned after the last game. I would not expect that again from him. Let's see. Other point guard options. I mean, Cole Anthony will probably play 20 minutes off the bench, but that's probably not necessary on this slate. We're going to talk about George Hill. I think he's a pretty decent value play. And then that's really it. Again, it's the Rockets value potentially, again, who ends up starting for Houston. So, that's going to do it for the video today, guys. If you have been enjoying the content so far, I'd really appreciate it if you leave a like button on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you know when I upload videos, when I go live. But yeah, thanks again, guys. I hope you guys all have a great day, and I will see you all later.